Craigslist has never been my favorite site to use, but after being fired from my job, I was struggling to find work, so I thought I would give Craigslist another try. I was willing to do anything at this point, but I found one ad that was offering multiple jobs on a newly purchased house. The job description read something like, "All-round handyman wanted for decorating, gardening, and other miscellaneous tasks." I'm a joiner by trade, so I'm pretty good with my hands. I contacted the advertiser, who I'll call Reese, and once I told him of my experience, he told me he would pay me $100 a day cash, and it would be a minimum of 2 weeks' work, but I could be working up to 12-hour days, depending on the task for that day. I agreed, and after meeting Reese, he told me he would give me a one-day trial to see if I would be a good fit. I turned up on Monday and met Reese at the house. He walked me around the house and then said he was going to start me out in the garden. He gave me a list of what needed to be done and said if I finished it all that same day, he would hire me for the rest of the work. I worked my ass off that day, and at about 9 p.m. after the sun had gone down, I had completed everything on the list. Reese came out to check my work and said he never thought I would actually get it done and that he just wanted to see how hard I could work. He offered me the job and gave me an envelope with $100 in it. "See you in the morning, 8 a.m., he said as he walked back into the house. The next morning, I arrived bright and early, and Reese gave me a list of things that needed doing that day. About 12 p.m., Reese came and asked if I wanted any lunch. "Hey, I'm going out for a bite to eat. You want me to bring you something back? It's on me." I said I was okay, as I had brought some food with me. Once Reese had left, I started to relax a little. Although he left me to get on with it, I felt like he was constantly watching me. About 10 minutes after Reese had left, I heard a thud upstairs. As far as I was aware, there was no one else in the house. I thought nothing more of it and carried on with whatever job I was doing at the time. Then I heard it again. This time it was more distinct, and it definitely sounded like someone was up there. I decided to go and check it out. I went upstairs cautiously. It wasn't really my business, but I was thinking that maybe someone climbed in through a window. But after looking around, I couldn't find anyone, or even find anything that would explain the sound I heard. As I made my way back downstairs, I heard it again. It sounded like it came from the master bedroom. I went in cautiously and looked around, checking under the bed, when I noticed a sheet hanging up in the corner of the room. I pulled it back to reveal a closet door. My heart sank, and I trembled, thinking that maybe something, or more likely someone, was in here. I took a deep breath and opened the closet door, and I'm glad to report that there was no one in there. I did, however, notice a small wooden box on the floor, which seemed out of place, seeing as though there was nothing else in there. I know it wasn't really my place to snoop, but I was curious as to why there would be a single box in the closet, which was hidden by a sheet. I opened the box and found a pile of photographs, maybe about 24 in total. I don't want to say what these photographs were, but I will tell you that no one should ever be in possession of these types of photographs. No one that doesn't have a sick mind anyway. I heard the front door to the house close, and Reese shouted my name. I put the box back and tried to make it look as though I hadn't touched the sheet. I came out of the bedroom as Reese was coming up the stairs. He stared at me. "Everything okay? Why are you in my bedroom?" I explained that I had heard something and thought it might be someone trying to break in through a back window, but couldn't find anything. As I walked past Reese, he moved to the side to block my way and looked right into my eyes as though he didn't trust me, or to look into my soul to see if I knew something. I kind of stuttered nervously. I best get back to work." Reese moved out of my way, and I took a deep breath as I walked down the stairs. I knew Reese was full on watching me as I walked away, and I certainly didn't feel safe being there anymore. I tried to think of a way that I could leave and just not come back without giving it away that I knew what secrets were hiding in that closet. I wasn't smart enough to come up with anything that didn't sound like a blatant lie. Eventually, I finished my work for the day, and when I said goodbye to Reese, he handed me an envelope with $200 in it and said, "You did a good job today. There's a little something extra in there for you for all your hard work, but let's keep that between us." I thanked him and made my way home. Once I got home, I was unsure what to do. I wanted to call the police, but I was scared I might get into trouble for looking around his house without permission. Anyways, I decided to call the police and let them know what I found. I felt it was more important to deal with the content of those photos, even if it did mean I landed in trouble as well. The police said they would look into it. I decided I didn't want to work for Reese, and I didn't want his hush money, so I returned the extra $100 and put it in his mailbox. I sent a message to Reese the next day, saying that I was no longer able to work for him. I don't know if anything ever came from my statement to the police, but I hope I never see that guy again. This story happened right as I was starting to get out on my own. I had just graduated college and accepted a new job in a new city. To take away the stress of bills, I decided to get a roommate. After months of nothing, I turned to Craigslist. I wasn't super thrilled at the idea, but I severely underestimated my expenses, and I was beginning to panic. Finally, I arranged to meet with a girl who was around my age. After talking for a day or two, we learned that we had a ton in common, even moving to a new place and new jobs. During the meeting, she was very shy. She was friendly, but definitely not an extrovert by any means. We talked for a good while, and nothing stuck out to me as a red flag. She seemed like she was just a typical woman who was trying to make it. I offered her the room and she agreed, moving in that weekend. At first, things were fine. She was helpful, kept her space tidy, and bills were taken care of on time. It wasn't until 2 months in that things took a turn for the worse. It was a subtle shift. She started to lose touch of personal boundaries. I would be with my boyfriend in my room with the door shut, and she would barge in without even announcing. If friends were over, she would stay under our feet the entire time. If we wanted to go out, she would ask to join. Then it progressed to her being irrationally upset if I came home late from work or a night out. Getting annoyed, I talked to her and filed it in the back of my mind thinking it would be fine. It wasn't. My things kept going missing. Not just normal things either. My underwear, bras, and toothbrushes would just vanish. Then, the last 2 incidents were enough to send me over the edge. The first incident happened when I came home from work early. Inside the house, things were silent. I knew she was here because of her car, and I thought she was just sleeping. What I didn't know, but soon found out, was she was asleep, just in my bed instead of hers. I woke her up as soon as I registered it, and she apologized that it wouldn't happen again. I was beginning to get a bad vibe from her that just kept getting darker. Then, that same night, I went to bed like usual. I briefly woke up in the middle of the night because of a noise and realized she was watching me. I yelled at her to get out and locked my door, putting an accent chair under the knob for good measure. Still creeped out, I barely slept the rest of the time. I could hear her rifling around in her room until it went quiet around 3 a.m. Since I had been up all night, I waited until she went to work the next day and decided I was going to find out what exactly was going on with my roommate. Now, I'm not normally the type to snoop, but I felt this urge to go into her room and have a look. Her room was neat, everything in its place. I took time looking at pictures, and it was odd that she didn't have any with her in them, not even family pictures. None of the pictures were of anybody at all. It was all pictures of landscaping, random spots of grass and trees. It reminded me of mediocre photography. I made my way to her closet next, assuming if I had important things that they would be in there. The first glance revealed it was messy, unlike her room. Then, there in a pile that was hidden under towels, stood a mountain of my clothes. I dug through, realizing that the only article of clothing that was missing from this pile was my undergarments. Beyond freaked out, I ravaged the rest of her room until I accidentally bumped into her nightstand, and an envelope that had tape on it hit the floor. My hands were shaking as I opened the flap and dropped the photos onto the floor. The photos were of me. In some, I was showering. In others, I was sleeping. Even pictures of me leaving work were all there. Completely scared, I began to back out of the room until I saw something keeping her mattress barely a centimeter off the box spring. Now that I saw the pictures, I was already expecting the worst, afraid it was my undergarments or more pictures. My finding under the mattress was confusing, but eerie. Stuffed under the mattress were 4 licenses. All the ID cards had different names, but the same picture of my roommate wearing this demented grin. Something told me that these ID cards meant nothing good, and that I needed to do something with them. When I got them to my room and started checking the names, I discovered that the names were of women who were missing. After I calmed down, I took the cards directly to the police station. I explained the situation, and since I had the cards, they believed me. I told them that my roommate was at work, and she would be back soon. We decided the best plan was to confront her at home, and I went back to wait for her. When she came inside, cop cars wailed and lit up the road outside. She turned and looked at me when she heard them, giving me this creepy, dead eyes smirk. I still remember what she said to me when she left. "Guess that's my ride." Those were the last words she said to me. I still don't know what came of the women on the ID cards, or what she had done to expect police, but I also think I don't want to know. I'm a freelance writer. I make my money writing movie reviews and website articles. It's a pretty sweet gig. Sometimes I even get advanced screeners for new movies. I've been able to support myself this way for 2 years now, but lately the work has started to dry up. I guess that AI-generated content is starting to take over, so a lot of the old websites that I used to write for have stopped giving me assignments. I don't want to get a regular 9-to-5, so I've started to look for writing gigs on other websites. About a month ago, I realized that there are plenty of gigs on Craigslist. The pay is usually lower than what I'm used to, but every once in a while, I'll find something that's worth my time. One day, I found a posting from a new director who wanted people to watch and review his indie horror movie. Horror definitely isn't my favorite genre, but he was paying a lot, so I emailed him saying that I was interested. He replied within 5 minutes, saying that he'd mail me a DVD to watch. All I had to do was give him my address. Usually, this kind of stuff is all online. Filmmakers would send Vimeo links to their work, or they'd just post a private video on YouTube. I'd never had anyone send me a physical copy before. I considered saying no, but I really needed the money. I sent him my address, and then he didn't respond. The next day, the DVD arrived in the mail. I put it in the player and instantly knew that something was wrong. The movie was grainy and amateurish. There weren't even any opening credits. It was just a woman tied up in some grimy cell. A masked man walked in with a tray of scalpels and knives. As she screamed, the man started to cut into her. I almost threw up. This was a snuff film. I quickly shut it off. I went to my laptop to email the creep, but I saw that he'd sent me another message literally 10 minutes before. All it said was, "Do you like the film? I'm planning to make a sequel." My heart raced. This man was threatening me. He wanted to kill me just like he'd done to the woman on the video, and he had my address. I went into my kitchen to see if I had any weapons to protect myself. Aside from some kitchen knives, I didn't have anything. I couldn't stay in the house alone. I had to get out of there fast, so I grabbed the biggest knife I had and ran to my door. All I needed to do was get in my car and drive to my sister's. Then I'd call the police and tell them what had happened. Because Craigslist is anonymous, I didn't have the man's name. I didn't even have his real email address, just the temporary one that Craigslist provided to him. But there had to be a way for the police to trace his account, right? I looked out my window to make sure that the man wasn't waiting for me outside. The yard seemed empty. I opened the door and ran to my car. I got inside and locked all the doors. I sat there for a bit, forcing myself to calm down. It was going to be okay. The man hadn't gotten to me yet. Then, I felt something bump against the back of my chair. I turned around and saw the man waiting in the back seat. He wore the same black ski mask and had an old camcorder pointed at me. "When I say action," he whispered, "I want you to scream." Without realizing what I was doing, I reached forward and shoved the front of the camera hard. It smashed into his face. Then, I jumped out of my car and ran down the street. I kept running, screaming all the way, until one of my neighbors opened her door to ask what was going on. I ran inside and locked us in. From her house, I called the police. They arrived in less than 5 minutes, and I took them back to my house. We saw that my car door was open, but there were no signs of that man. The knife that I'd taken with me was sitting on the driver's seat. We searched everywhere, but we couldn't find him. The police said that they'd keep an eye on the place in case he returned. I didn't want to risk it, so I drove to my sister's and asked if I could stay with her. It's been 2 months now, and that man still hasn't returned to finish his movie. The police were never able to find him. I'm thinking about moving back into my house, but I haven't built up the courage yet. I know he's still out there, waiting to finish his movie.